There's a whole chapter on embedded Oracle functions, and they get divided up into single row functions, aggregates, analytic, and so on and so forth. They get very complicated, but the basic ones are numeric, number functions, characters, strings conversions, date times, conversions, things on large objects, higher, so on and so forth. There's a lot of it. If you look at this list here on the left, it starts at the top and it says ABS for absolute value. Look at all these functions down here. Now, if you know anything about basic mathematics, statistics, all that kind of stuff, you'll notice that a lot of these things might be familiar. For instance, you've got trigonometry functions. Here you've got things like correlation functions, covariances. There's so much stuff in here. You're bound to find anything that you might need to do with a database, you're bound to find it in here. But just imagine that if there's anything you actually want to do expression-wise, functionally within a database, the chances are you're probably going to find a function in here. If not, you can actually write it in PLSQL, which we will also look at in the next course. But in this course, all I want to do is the very basics of just showing you that there is embedded functionality and what it does. So for instance, take this example here. Let's go into SQL Developer and connect into shows. All this function does is convert all the contents of a string into uppercase. And you just hit return, and let's get rid of this window here. Everything's uppercase. If we go back to here, let's put name in, and let's also put lowercase. If it fits across the screen, if it doesn't, we can stretch it. There we go. Stretch this across a bit. This is all mixed case, this is all lowercase, and if we scroll across to the right, we've got uppercase. So you can do all sorts of things with strings. Trust me, a lot of stuff. This particular function is very widely used. This is called the, well, it's called the NVL function, but let's have a look at this first. LMN, let's go and look it up in here. There we go, NVL. There are multiple types of NVL. Lets you replace null. Null value, I guess that's what it means. But essentially, when you find a null value, SQL can do weird things. So quite often you actually need to replace that null value with a replacement that SQL can understand. All I've done here is said that when my category parent is null, I simply return a 999. So let's add in category ID, parent ID, and name. And then we have all the data. You see these are null. These are simply categories that don't have parents. There are many situations where you want to use a function like this. A null value is very specific to a relational database, which we will get into in a later movie in this chapter. Now let's take this one here. toChar converts things to strings. Now there are many cases where you're going to want to convert values to strings. All it does is return a string value, and as you can see, it's used a special operator in Oracle called the concat or concatenation operator, which simply takes one string and adds it to the other. This example will simply convert everything to strings and concatenate together using a special Oracle operator called the concat or concatenation operator. All it does is it adds one string to the other. There is a function actually called concat that does exactly the same thing. I'm pretty sure it's identical. And we can go to here. So you've just got two options. In fact, right, that's where the concat operator would get easier. See, we actually had 3 fields there. Now we've got 2. To do the same thing with a function and add the name in, what you'd actually have to do is embed, wrap, and go up a layer in the expression. So you take that entire expression and you add on the name. Now we've got 3 layers there. So it's easy to actually use the concatenation operator. So let's go and look at another example. And we've seen this before in this course. All we're actually doing here is we're pulling the details out of a date. All we're doing here with this example is we're converting a character based date to a date format, which will allow you to store it into a date field in an Oracle database. Here's another 2char example, pulling all the show dates out of the show table and formatting with a specific result. And once again, here we're going to actually do another date conversion. Here we're going to do another date conversion. Here's a thing called an in-string function, which is used for all sorts of things, chopping up strings. It tells you if there's a space in the string and what position it is in the string. And then we can actually change this. See, position 3, there's a space at position 3. There are no spaces in this string, so it says 0, doesn't find it. And then we can use that to pull out the first word of each city by going into the string, finding the position of the first space, subtracting that, and then running a function called substring and pulling the value from the string from position 1 to the position of the space less 1, because you don't want the space. And here you can see we have L, Lake, etc. So we could actually just go and add the name in here to see what we pulled out. These are all null because it doesn't find a first word. This is how we use Oracle built-in functions to change the value and results of expressions in Oracle SQL statements.